All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
I think that's such a huge piece because you hit the nail on the head. The critical thinking element, as a society, I don't think that we slow down enough and allow ourselves that space just for the processing of, right? So the critical thinking piece is a piece that's missing in a lot of segments of our world today. But what I love that you shared as you went into this experience is the curiosity. And I talk a lot about curiosity when I'm teaching within the real estate space. When you go in with a level of curiosity where you're just here, I just want to learn. I'm anxious to know more, learn more, grow, expand, do that reflection, the internal, because that becomes the introspective work as well, right? And so having that level of curiosity, I don't have all of the answers. I don't even know what I'm stepping into, but I want to learn. I think that propels you so much further at the end of the day.
Yep, and it's not accepting the status quo as well.
Yes.
Having the courage to question the status quo and what has been the way it's been done forever.
Right.
And asking why is that, and internally and externally having the discussions with yourself and with others that perhaps there could be a better way.
Yes.
And unfortunately, if you want to challenge, try to have those conversations in the law enforcement culture.
Exactly.
It's tough. When you were talking about, sometimes there's oftentimes a gap of critical thinking. Well, listen, that void is quite large in law enforcement, and it's in a career that probably least likely can afford to have it be absent.
Mhm.
You need law enforcement officers that are critical thinkers, that have moral reasoning, they're ethical decision making, that are problem solvers.
Yes.
These are the types of characteristics that you're looking for in a law enforcement officer. But unfortunately, in law enforcement, when you get hired, it's not a selection process. It's a selection process. If you don't have a criminal record, your finances are in order, and have basically been an upstanding citizen, then you got a decent chance of getting hired.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really not how that should be done. Not when you're talking about that critical role of somebody that's going to be serving the community in diverse communities under stressful, rapidly unfolding tactical scenarios that a bad decision can have a very tragic outcome, one that could be avoided.
Right.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the work you do now, because it sounds like this is exactly what you're talking about. You saw what was missing or is missing in law enforcement, and it looks like you're trying to kind of close that gap a little bit. So is that what got you into it? Like what you experienced over the 33 years in law enforcement?
Well, I felt that I did 33 years in law enforcement, and what a waste if I didn't take that experience and allow others to benefit from it.
Yeah.
So that's what motivated me and propelled me to become the founder and CEO of Law Enforcement Consultants, where we work to implement management best practices for law enforcement. Because although there is no national standard across the board for law enforcement in this country, there are management best practices that, if universally applied, will make law enforcement much more successful moving forward in the 21st century. It's about reducing liability, being more operationally effective and efficient. It's really important. And basically maximizing the ability to have an optimal outcome. And I'll tell you, one of the most challenging times that we have right now is the reality of officer-involved shootings. 36% of officer-involved shootings in this country involve an individual who's suffering a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
36%. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And if we utilize the traditional police tactics that were taught in the police academy, we're not going to have optimal outcomes. So we need to change our mindset and how we view our responsibility when we respond to those types of calls. Not only having the knowledge of how to identify that that's what we're dealing with, but also knowing better how to handle them. But most importantly, having some self-awareness of how somebody who's suffering a mental health crisis is going to respond to a number of officers in uniform, generally and oftentimes making multiple verbal commands simultaneously with guns drawn, tasers drawn, with a red dot on their chest and beanbag shotguns. And we'll call that attempts at de-escalation, but actually what we're really doing is we're escalating the situation.
100%.
Is it any secret or a surprise to people that these end with unnecessary deaths oftentimes? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to tell you that police officers should be pacifists. There are times when law enforcement officers have got to use lethal force, but that shouldn't be their go-to. There needs to be an understanding, because oftentimes, this is the problem in law enforcement, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So just because the codified law would protect you in the utilization of lethal force, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do in that moment. And I had a number of those types of circumstances during my career that I didn't resort to lethal force. And because I didn't need to. But hey, it would have been an in-policy shooting. It would have been justified. But so that's what we expect of our law enforcement officers. Those critical decisions under stressful circumstances.
But if they don't have the critical thinking skills like you were raised and modeled, they don't even know how to do it. They just are instinctively going with the force instead of the critical thinking.
Right. And, and it has a lot to do with training. And then even if we're training everybody to do things properly, if the police culture in the organization does not match the training, I always say that culture eats training for lunch. So you will see officers act out consistent to the culture, even when their training is contradictory to what the culture is telling them to do.
Wow. So how do you change the culture? Is that even possible?
Well, and it's interesting because I think that's the exact mission that you're on, Jeff. Like what you're working to create right now, even with the years of experience that you've had within law enforcement, is truly in the direction of changing the culture of law enforcement. If I'm not mistaken, that sounds like the mission that you're on.
Well, yeah, that very much so. And it's not just with my company, Law Enforcement Consultants. I have a forthcoming book. It's called On Thin Ice. And I came up with that title for two reasons. It's about my hockey background and how my hockey background influenced who I became as an adult and the values that I took into my law enforcement career, most importantly, my work ethic, to always strive for excellence. But I also believe that law enforcement is on thin ice. And I bleed blue. I love law enforcement. But I'm honest about where law enforcement has been, where it currently is, and what needs to be done to get us where we need to go to be successful moving forward in the 21st century. And that's what I talk about in my book. Yes, I talk about my unique background that I explained already. I talk about my professional experiences and my practical insights. And then I give my actionable solutions on what I believe could be helpful to be successful moving forward. And it's not me telling the world this is what needs to be done. It's really about fostering this discussion, creating the dialogue, because I've always said it's not about being right, it's about getting it right. And that requires that you have as many diverse opinions and backgrounds and experience levels at the table when you're discussing any issue. And law enforcement needs to open itself up to that and stop imposing its authority on the communities that they serve, but actually make the communities part of the organization, and not just in theory, but actually in practice, where they have a say in how things are going to be done. Because ultimately, isn't that who our ultimate boss is? The communities that we serve?
That you're serving.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going beyond like risk mitigation and risk management, right? Because you can do training and teaching on that. Like this is probably what's safe, and you have it from the practicum standpoint, but you're stepping into best practices that creates a new culture. And it's community by community, right? Like that's the reality. It's not what you like if you're offering this in LA County, that looks completely different than when you're in Ohio. Middle America, USA. It's going to look completely different. And so understanding that that is a true living, breathing relationship that is created to kind of meld and create and have this bonded relationship, which I think is ultimately where we started. There's a rift that has created along the way, but I believe that we can get back there. That's my thought process, but I don't work in that space. I don't work in the space.
Everybody should be hopeful because,
yes, yeah.
In writing my book, I did a lot of research. I went over to Europe, and I went to London, and I spent some time with the Metropolitan London Police, which is very different because they don't have the prevalence of firearms in their society. Their officers, unless they're a specialized entity within the organization, do not carry firearms. I went over
huge like wall between citizens and the right. I mean, that's yes.
But it's interesting because if you London or England and Wales, they had five officer-involved shootings. 5. Now, people are going to say, well, that's because the citizens don't carry guns. True, but they have a different mindset in regards to what their role is.
Yeah.
You look at these circumstances where we have an unbelievable number of officer-involved shootings in this country when a suspect's armed with a weapon other than a firearm, like a knife, a hatchet, a bat, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the number of officer-involved shootings that occur here under those circumstances that don't occur there.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the firearms.
Yeah.
They have a complete different mindset. But I would suggest they have a better track record than us in resolving those types of situations better. Because if you look at the data, we have a higher incidence of officers' injuries in handling people with weapons other than firearms than they do over there in the UK.
Wow.
So there's something that we can learn from them.
Yes.
And if you look at the Nordic countries, as I spoke about earlier, you talk about who you hire. It may not necessarily be so much about who you hire as much as it's about how you hire. So over there, you, generally speaking, go through an undergraduate criminal justice program during your training. And then they incorporate the police training and the tactics and the firearms into that. We're talking 2 and 3 years.
Wow.
Training. And during that training, you're being evaluated to see if you have these characteristics that we spoke of that are indicative of somebody that's going to be successful in law enforcement. Are you
huge?
Are you a problem solver? Do you have moral reasoning? Are you able to perform under stress?
Yeah.
Do you respond well to training? Do you have an open mind to accepting other perspectives and other points of view? All of these things are occurring while they're going through this training. And then and only then, if they've demonstrated that they have all these characteristics and they perform to a standard that's required in that training, do they get hired?
Wow.
And I think there's something that can be learned from that.
100%.
Much higher barrier to entry in those countries. Yeah. Wow.
Well, at least the
what's going on
character
here?
of the individuals that are on the front line, right? Because, and again,
Yeah.
I've never served in as an officer or any type of law enforcement position, but I'm imagining that the moment that you don't want to realize and look over that your partner and you are not on the same page from a moral standpoint is not the time that you need to have that realization. So at least knowing that you're on the same,
Yeah. Everyone.
field. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and that is a reality. And I'll share an experience with you when I was first working at 77th Division, and it was not more than much more than a year after the riots.
Mhm.
And I was patrolling in 77th Division
Yeah.
in a community that basically just, exploded in the violence that it did. And it wasn't, let's be honest, it wasn't about the not guilty verdicts. That really, that was the catalyst,
Right.
but it was about decades of mistreatment from the police in those communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're talking just over a year. I came to work one day and my partner wasn't there. So I got assigned to another officer whose partner wasn't there. Worked with this officer one time.
Mhm.
And during this time, he was driving and I was the passenger officer. And we were driving down the road and we saw a couple. It was a female black and a male white, and they were holding hands. And he says, my parents taught me better than that. And I go, what do you mean?
Mm.
And he goes, my parents taught me not to have sex with animals. Now, he had no idea that I had a sister, foster sister, who was black.
Yeah.
At the time, I had been dating for 2 years a female black deputy sheriff
Mhm.
who had been born and raised in South LA and really helped me to understand the police community
Yeah.
relationship,
Relationship.
what had caused it to deteriorate to the point that it had. I mean,
Mhm.
we used to go every Sunday, we'd go to our Aunt Edna's in Inglewood. And, I was being exposed to food I'd never eaten before,
Yeah.
the collard greens and I loved her peach cobbler. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was shocked that just because I look the way that I look,
Just assumed.
assumed that I had the same belief system that he did. And this was a concern because in law enforcement, especially in the culture back in the early 90s, you can't just go run in and, oh, this officer said this. Let's be honest, you can't do that.
No.
Mm.
You'll be ostracized and, won't be long until it'd be impossible for you to continue with your career.
Absolutely.
But I knew I didn't want to work with this guy. But I knew that he was representative of a certain percentage of the officers. Because
Yes.
really what you have to be concerned about is that people's attitudes and beliefs impact their actions
Behavior.
and
Yeah. The decisions they make. Yeah.
and I'm like, I can't be working the same radio car with this guy because I don't know what he'll do
Yeah.
based on that type of a belief system.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was a challenging time because, like I said, the riots had just occurred and people hated us.
Mm-hmm.
And they certainly hated police officers that looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you
Mhm.
know, you can respond to that in different ways. And
Mhm.
once again, it goes back to it's not about what happens to you or how you're being treated, it's how you respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw was a need for the community to understand that I did not see them as the enemy,
Mhm.
and I needed to engage with them so they understood that.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, that, that they understood that I shouldn't be seen as the enemy.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I used to take the time when I had it to go into the projects, and I would throw the football with the kids.
Yeah.
And these kids, they're living in these gang-infested areas, and there will be a day. It's not if, it's when
Right.
they're going to be confronted with having to make a decision on
Right.
whether they're going to enter the gang or what have you. And And if any way I could touch one of them where they said, I remember that Officer Wenninger. He was a good guy. All
Mm-hmm.
cops aren't bad. And that may influence their decision on what they do when that time comes.
Right.
That's well worth my time. And I used to get ridiculed for it.
Mm.
But I just thought it was important.
By
And
the other officers, you were ridiculed by the other
yeah,
officers. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Because, it's they needed to see, I don't care where you grow up. We have more in common than we have that's different.
100%. Yes.
And and the one thing that I would say made me successful in my law enforcement career was my understanding that we are all driven by the same emotions.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
It's about appealing to people's emotions, those
Mm-hmm.
core raw emotions. And if you can do that, you can oftentimes get voluntary compliance from people that even are the most hardened criminals.
Right.
Mm.
And because we're all the same, we really are. And my
Mm.
father used to tell me, he said, "Son, you're an unbelievably driven young man, and always were as a young boy. And
Mhm.
that's why you had the opportunities you had in ice hockey, and you played hockey at the level you played."
Mhm.
And he goes, "Had you been in an environment similar to the places you're policing, your
Mhm.
leadership probably would have driven you to be the leader of the gang."
Of the
Yep.
gang. Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah,
you same skills,
Absolutely.
just different environment, and you would have
yeah,
been the leader there. Yeah,
yep. So
absolutely.
you have to
Yeah.
understand that. So you and the leader of the gang, you're pretty much cut from the same cloth, my friend,
Yes.
just different environments.
Yeah. And
That's how you
different,
have to approach it.
yeah, different influences. You had, your parents were incredible role models for you. And wow. Is your book already out for people to purchase?
Nope,
Is
it'll
that
be out in September. I'm actually going to make a an announcement. I do syndicated. I'm a co-host on a syndicated radio show. Uh,
okay?
that's I'll be making the live announcement on that.
Okay.
Oh,
That's a
well, wonderful. So then for the Reignite Resilience listeners, you heard it here first on Thin Ice. It is coming out in September. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yes. Love
okay.
that. Congratulations. Congratulations on the book. And this looks like it creates a space to not just do training and just education within the space of law enforcement, but also just for the general public and the consumer as well, or I guess the citizens within the communities that you all are serving. I do, out of curiosity, my own curiosity for you, Jeff, I would like to see or hear from you. What was the one thing that you learned out of your 33 years of experience? What's the one thing that resonates with you today that you either have instilled in your son or that has changed how you show up as a person every day?
Well, I would think it would have to be patience.
Mm,
My law enforcement career, the institution of law enforcement is slow moving to change. And it's not keeping up with the rapidly changing societal expectations of law enforcement.
mm,
So you need to be patient in that if you have the mindset that I do, where you want to perform not only individually, but as a collective profession
yeah.
at an optimal level. You have to be patient in getting there. And then being a father, you
Wow.
need to be patient and you need to
Yeah.
teach patience.
Love it.
Yes.
Poise and grace and be patient. And that's what I really strive for. And that's really the premise behind my book. It's my goal is to enlighten the readers,
Mm,
have them feel a sense of empowerment, but ultimately when they put the book down, have a sense of feeling hopeful
Yeah.
that there is brighter light at the end of the tunnel here.
mhm.
There are things that we can do to fix this thin ice that we're standing on.
Yeah.
And hopefully that law enforcement takes the opportunity to navigate that and control and dictate how these changes will occur rather than have them imposed on them.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Love that. Absolutely. Patience. Patience. It's not what I would have imagined, but I think that's great. It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Um, starting from an experience or an interaction that you had at a younger age, looking at excessive force and full-fledged in the trenches, and learning so much and having such an impact on the communities that you were able to serve during the time that you served in law enforcement. Thank you for that. And thank you for continuing to do the work.
Yeah, and make a difference. Incredible.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we will make sure On Thin Ice, will it be available on Amazon and all online bookstores, or should we
Yeah,
send
it'll
our
be on every platform. You'll be able to go to Barnes and Noble and buy it.
beautiful
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble, Amazon? We will make sure that we drop a link and we'll update the show notes after the release in September, so our listeners can get a copy of On Thin Ice. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best thing to do? Website, email? How is the best way that they can connect with you?
Well, on social media, you can go to Jeff Wenninger at either Facebook or LinkedIn, and I respond to all messages. In regards to the book, if you want to find out more about the book, you can go to onthinicebook.com. And when you go there, you can get put on the mailing list. So you'll be the first to find out everything that's occurring. And you'll also have an opportunity. I'm putting together what we're calling gift swag boxes, where you'll get a hard copy signed copy of the book, as well as other gifts that are driven by the spirit of the book.
Love it.
Love that. Who doesn't love some swag? That's awesome. We will make sure that we add that link on thinicebook.com. We'll add that in our show notes. Jeff, is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with that we have not had a chance to touch on yet today?
Well, no, I think it's important that everybody, regardless of what your desires or goals or aspirations are, is that you always maintain your focus and be true to yourself and your passion. And in doing that, don't get overwhelmed in regards to ignoring the time you need to take care of yourself, because you can only be as good as you are at taking care of yourself.
Beautiful.
That's huge. Fabulous. I think that's a fabulous place for us to land and end it.
Absolutely. Thank you
Jeff,
so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. Thank you for giving us insight into your background, your story, and sharing some information about your book as well. Really excited to get a hold of that and start reading it and diving in. And thank you for sharing just your insight with our listeners. It's been really great conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was
Absolutely. Good. Yeah, absolutely. And you all know, if you're looking for more information on Reignite Resilience, head on over to reigniteresilience.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram at Reignite Resilience Podcast. Until next time, we will see y'all soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.